Welcome, I'm Lorelei of Namasturm Yoga. If you are brand new to yoga, this is part of a series of Yoga for Absolute Beginners, Part E. Let's get to the mat and get started. Make your way to your yoga mat, come to an easy cross-legged position, set up your shoulders over your hips, bring your hands to your knees, maybe even close your eyes and come to just a bit of stillness here. This is the fifth part in this series I've been doing of Yoga for Absolute Beginners. If you haven't done parts A through D, that's okay. You can check them out later, but go ahead, welcome, join in, do the best you can with this practice that you've got right in front of you. I promise I will do my very best to explain things in great detail, so you should be able to follow along. So this practice is actually going to be a lot of review, but we will also add some new standing poses, which is what I really want to focus on today. E is for engage. I encourage you to really engage in this practice. If you've just been dipping your toe in the water so far, see if you can really get into this one with your body, with your heart, with your whole self. Try out the poses, see how they feel. Get your body moving and practicing, enjoy it. Yoga is a physical exercise. It is participative, so enjoy. So right now, all we're doing is sitting and breathing. Anyone can do that, so start here. Start to notice your breathing patterns, and now we're going to switch into our Ujjayi breathing practice, which we've talked about in previous practices, but if you don't remember, it involves a slight narrowing of the back of the throat. This is subtle, but as you do this, you should be able to start to hear the breath as it moves in and out. The way that you would hear your own breath if you were whispering or making an H sound at the beginning of a word. But we're doing it with the lips closed, so it's just very deeply into the back of the throat, in and out through the nose. And you may not even be able to hear me, but you should be able to hear yourself. Try to even out the rhythm of your breath. Exhales and inhales even. You might feel like you're breathing a little bit more deeply, but it shouldn't be dramatic. We don't want to hyperventilate. Just get enough air so that we can keep moving. Let's go ahead and uncross the legs and come to tabletop. And now we're going to do a few cat-cow stretches. So shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. Remember, cow pose is where we sway the back, head and tail lift, chest and belly drop. And then we move into cat pose, doing the opposite. Arch the spine, head comes down, tail tucks under. Inhale, cow, and exhale, cat. And we really want to try to connect the movement to the breath. So we're inhaling as we go into cow. Stay with your Ujjayi breathing practice. Exhaling into cat. The movement of the breath is leading the movement of the body, but there is a connection here. So as you think of inhaling, the front of the body is expanding, which is what naturally happens when you inhale. And as you think of exhaling, your navel pulls in and you kind of contract the front, which is what naturally happens as you exhale. So there's some logic behind it, let's just say. One more round here, and this is really just a warm-up. So warming up breath and body. Inhale, cow, exhale, cat, but you should also feel this warming up your spine. From here, we're going to go to child's pose. Take your knees a little wide, and this is a very basic, really resting pose. Feet together, bring your hips back to your heels. Walk the hands out, let your head hang down, forehead comes to the floor. So although this is resting in practice, you're going to feel this lengthen the back of your body. You might feel this working into your hips. Stay here and breathe. Feel all sides of your body expand as you inhale, and as you exhale, maybe sinking a little deeper. And then we're going to come back up to a tabletop, but keep your hands a little bit forward. So we walked them a little forward to get to child's pose. Keep them there. Walk your knees back in under the hips. And we're gonna go right into downward facing dog. So this is a review of this pose, but it is one that gets used so much in yoga. Spread your fingers wide. So before you even think of lifting your knees, try to think about rooting your hands down, pressing them forward and down into your mat. Really engage those hands into the mat. Now tuck your toes, and as you push your hands forward and down, think of lifting your hips up and back. Move your chest or your heart back in the direction of your thighs, but keep the knees bent here at first. Focus on getting the hands down and the hips up, and a nice diagonal across the upper body. The knees can be bent, the heels can be lifted, but once you've got a lot of length in the upper body, see if you can gently straighten your right leg and drop the heel towards the floor. It doesn't need to come completely down. And then rebend the right, switch to the other side, let the left start to drop a little, and then go back and forth a couple of times, warming up your legs, but keep the upper body really nice and strong. Hips lifted, hands pressing down. The neck is relaxed here, so let your head hang. Now, let's lift our heels a lot and start to move the shoulders directly forward over the wrists, but the knees aren't going to come down. We're going to come to plank. Walk the hands a little further forward so your shoulders are over your wrists. Reach through the heels, reach through your head, strong through your core, which is your deep abdominal muscles. So you should feel like this whole center part of your body is like toned up and working here. This is plank. Now we're going to lower our knees down to the floor and carefully lower the chest between the hands. To do this, you need to bend your elbows. So don't just drop your hips and let your body go slack. Really see if you can stay in control here. We're going to come up to cobra. So the first cobra is going to be a baby cobra. Lift the shoulders, elbows by the sides. Just come up a little bit using the muscles of your upper back. No weight on the hands here. And then if we want to press up into a fuller cobra, we're going to push down. Avoid letting your shoulders hunch. Keep the shoulders back and down. So imagine you were rolling your shoulders back and then keep them back. Keep your elbows by your sides and then move your heart forward. Try to relax your legs and your glutes. So just let the legs rest on the floor completely. Now from cobra, we're going to go directly to down dog. So keep the hands pressing down, tuck your toes, lift your knees, lift your hips, and move your chest back. Let your head hang down and hold for a couple of breaths in downward facing dog. Make sure your fingers are spread wide if they have drawn together or starting to cup up. See if you can really root down through the hands. Breathe here. So try to find some stillness in this inverted V-shaped downward facing dog. And then look forward between the hands, and we're going to walk the feet all the way up. And we're just going to hang for a moment in a standing forward fold. So feet about hip distance with the knees over the ankles. Just let your upper body hang. Those knees can be bent and soft. Maybe sway a little bit. Allow the upper body to release. And then we're going to roll on up to standing. So as you roll up through your spine, think about stacking it. So each vertebra of your spine is a joint. So see if you can stack those joints separately. Come on up, roll the shoulders back and down. And then let's take the feet together at the top of the mat. We're going to do one sun salutation A. So again, this is just going to be a review, a little refresher here. We're going to bring the palms together in front of the heart, coming to Tadasana. Mountain pose. Gaze forward. Tune into your breath. On an inhale, reach the arms out and up. As you exhale, lead with your heart to forward fold over the legs, coming to Uttanasana, standing forward fold. Fingers to shins, root in, flatten the back, reach the head away from the tail. This is Ardha Uttanasana, or half forward fold. And then bend your knees enough so you can get your hands to the floor, step your feet to the back of the mat, coming back to plank. And then let's lower the knees down, lower the chest down. We just did this, lowering all the way to the floor from plank. Elbows by the sides, bring your chest up for cobra, and then move your chest back, downward facing dog. Spread the fingers wide, adjust the feet as needed. And then inhale, look forward between those hands and step, walk, or if you want, you could even hop forward to the front of the mat. Bring the big toes to touch, heels slightly apart. Fingers to shins, lift up halfway, flat back. Exhale, folding down, and then reverse your swan dive. Root into those feet to come up. So it's different than rolling up. We're reverse swan diving to come up. Palms together in front of the heart. Press them lightly and breathe. Ready to add on? Now that you should feel a little bit warmed up, we're going to start to go into a few more standing poses and challenge the strength of our legs. Inhale, reach the arms out and up. Exhale, long forward fold over the legs. Fingers to shins. Reach the head forward. Okay, so now instead of stepping back to plank, bring your fingertips lightly to the floor. You can bend your knees to do this, and we're going to keep the right foot right where it is, but we're going to step the left foot back. And we've done this before, so this is just a high lunge. We want to step the left foot back far enough so that our right knee ends up right over the ankle. And this is just a reminder, but we really like to have a vertical shin here, and this will come up in a bunch of the poses we're going to do today. So really think about that. Now, we've got that front knee bent. The fingers are still on the floor. Engage your back quad. So really let that back thigh muscle activate to help straighten out your knee and reach through the heel. And we're going to float the hands and upper body up off the floor. So coming all the way up, this is a high lunge. Once we get the upper body up and the arms into the air, this is crescent pose. Gaze ahead of you at a single point that's not moving to help with the balance. And you're going to need it because that back heel is not on the floor. We're just on the ball of the back foot as we lunge into the front knee and gaze forward. Stay tuned into the breath. Do the best you can. Try to keep your back leg straight and engaged to help with the balance. Now from here, let's take the left hand down to the floor. Inside the right foot, you want to have the fingers and toes line up. So not ahead of it, right? And your right knee stays right above the ankle. If you have a hard time getting your hand on the floor, you could put a block, a yoga block underneath it, or even a book or something like that. And then let's take the right arm up for an easy twist. This may not feel easy, but that's what it's called. Stack the shoulders, look up to your top thumb. Keep that back leg really strong. So again, it's sort of the engagement of the muscles of that leg. It's going to help the whole thing. Turn back to the floor. And from here, we're going to step to a plank pose. So step your right foot back to meet the left. This might be challenging. You might have to pick up your right hand and move it that way. But if you can just get it through, step it back. We're in plank again. Take your knees down. Take your chest down. Take your elbows by your sides. Come on up in cobra pose. And exhale, downward facing dog. So we're just kind of adding on, working with some of the things we've already done. Keeping it connected, reminding our body so it doesn't forget, so it starts to learn, building the muscle memory. Inhale, look forward between your hands as you exhale. Step, walk, or hop the feet to the front of your mat. Fingers to shins, let's take a half lift, nice flat back. Exhale, fold, and then press the feet down. Let's reverse and come on up. And palms together in front of the heart. We're going to do the other leg. So inhale. Exhale, fold over the legs. This time the right foot is going to step back. So the left foot is going to stay forward. Try to use the whole mat here, right? So if your foot only goes back this far, it's going to be really hard to keep your left knee over the ankle and get a good lunge. So use as much of the mat as you can. Reach through the back heel. Engage your right leg. Reach through the head and then start to float yourself up. Take the arms up if you can. So although there's energy in your fingers, your shoulders should be soft so that there's not tension or strain. It's just a sense of being engaged through your whole body. Even though it feels like this pose is for the legs, every part of you is connected and involved. Let's take now the right hand to the floor. And again, we want to have it lined up with the foot, fingers and toes across the edge of your mat. Take the left arm up. twist, shoulders stack. And that may not be possible for you, but we want to know what our goal is, what our trajectory is, so that we're aiming for something, even if we're not exactly there today. Keep your left knee on top of your ankle. And then one more time, we're going to turn back to the floor and we're going to do our best to step smoothly to plank. So again, do the best you can. Step that foot back, keep your shoulders over your wrists. Take your knees down so you can more easily lower your chest, but keep your abdominal muscles engaged here so you're not dropping the hips out. And then keep the elbows by the sides. Take yourself to cobra pose, and then tucking your toes, lift your hips, lift your knees, move your heart back, downward facing dog again. Downward facing dog is supposed to be a resting pose. I understand if it may not feel that way, and if that's the case for you, you can take your knees to the floor, take your hips to your heels, and take a child's pose in place of it. That said, down dog is one of those poses where we want to try to find a balance between effort, so the hands rooting down, the hips lifting up, and ease. So find places you can relax, really letting the neck release. Don't work too hard. If your knees need to bend, it's fine. Find enough ease in this pose so that you can stay here for a little bit longer without killing yourself. Let's walk the feet forward between the hands. Now, at this point, we're going to work into some more standing poses that are kind of fixtures of yoga classes. We're going to go into our warrior poses. So this is exciting. Hopefully this is something you can really get engaged in, because now it starts to really feel like we're practicing yoga. Come back to the top of your mat, toes touch, heels slightly apart. We're going to take a forward fold again, and similar to what we did before, we're going to bring the fingers to the floor and we're going to step the left foot back, keeping the right foot forward. We're going to come up to a high lunge like we did just crescent, but now instead of keeping your back heel lifted with your fingers still on the floor, you're going to pivot your back heel to touch the ground, which means you're going to need to turn your left toes out to the left side a little bit. I also encourage you to slightly step your left foot to the left and make sure that your right foot is more to the right. Now, from here, we're going to come up, and you can feel that this is actually easier than the crescent pose we just did. Because we've got that back heel down, we can push into it. The balance isn't quite as challenging, but we can do more, right? So what happens when we push that heel down is that sometimes this left hip, it wants to open, and I'll just kind of show from here. So the back heel is down, this left hip kind of wants to pull back. So the goal is to draw our hips so that they line up with each other across the front edge of the mat. So that's our work here, that's our challenge. The other thing to notice is that it's really important that this knee stay over the ankle. We're working here, so as we lunge deeper, and maybe your lunge is only like this, but if you were then to go deeper, your knee starts to go behind your ankle, past your toes. It's a lot of strain on this front knee. So we want to make sure that the feet are far enough apart, front to back, that as you bend deeper into that front knee, you're not going to compromise your joint. For a moment, hands to your hips, try to square the hips forward, and then finally, let's take the arms up. You'll feel this in your quad, and ultimately we build these muscles to help support our knees in day-to-day life. So we don't want to hurt our knee in the pose. Ultimately, we're looking to help our knees. Okay, and let's just go ahead and step forward, come out of that, shake out your right leg if it needs it, and it might. Needs a little relief there. We're going to come back to a forward fold, and we're going to do the other side. So this time the right foot is going to step all the way back. Before we take the hands off the floor, just slightly scooch your left foot to the left, and then the right heel is going to come down. Now, notice my toes aren't turned all the way out. They're only turned out a little bit, just enough so I can get my back heel down. This back leg is completely straight and strong. Push into your heel, bend into the front knee, and then float up with your upper body. Take your hands to your hips. Notice if this left hip has opened to the side. Look, it's really normal. But we're working, our job, our intention is to start to try to get those hips squared forward without letting the back heel lift, right? So it's work, right? And this is why we're doing this pose, is because it's a little bit of effort required to get in here. Hips across from each other, and then take the arms up. Steady your gazing point ahead of you. We don't need it to balance, but we do want to have the whole pose feel engaged, engaging. So even our gaze is a part of it. Energy through the fingers, lunge deeper if you can. And then let's go ahead and just step back to the front of the mat and shake that leg out. Okay, that was warrior one. There are actually 3 warrior poses. We're gonna do 1 and 2 today and a couple of variations. Let's step the feet wide now. Let's just take a nice wide-legged forward fold. So we want to have, for now, the feet parallel, about a leg length apart. So if you could imagine one of your legs tipped over, that would be the space between that and your other foot. Let's take the hands to the hips, and we're just going to take a nice forward fold here. Lift your quads. So again, we want to engage the front of the legs to fold down into this space. And then at a certain point, take your hands to the floor. If they don't reach the floor, you can put something under them, so a block or a book. Maybe walk the fingers back to line up with the feet. Let your head hang. And I encourage you to lean a little forward toward the balls of your feet. This is going to require that your leg engage more so that you don't actually tip onto your head. But we're also working to open the backs of the legs here. Breathe. And then push the feet down, root into the floor. So this is like a little engagement where we're pushing the feet down to help us lift up nice and strong. So that pose is called Prasarita Padottanasana. You don't have to remember that. Some people call it Prasarita. So you'll hear different names, but basically it's a wide-legged forward fold. Okay, from here, we're gonna keep our feet this distance apart. We're gonna keep our left foot slightly turned in, like so the edge of the foot is parallel with the outer edge of the mat. We're gonna pivot on our right foot so that the right toes turn directly towards that short end of the mat. The front heel now lines up with the back arch. We're gonna go into warrior two. So before we start to bend the front knee, let's see if we can get our hips. Now, we want to have them open along the long edge of the mat. So when we were in warrior one, we had them towards the short edge of the mat. In warrior two, we open our hips towards the long side of the mat. And then we're going to try to bend the right knee directly toward the toes. Then the arms come out at shoulder height. This is our arm position. Our head position is we look over our front fingers. But let's think at this point a little bit more about our legs. So it starts with the feet. The back foot is slightly turned in, so try not to let those toes turn out. We are on the back heel and push into the outer edge of the back foot. The front toes are turned completely forward, and it's helpful with the feet if front heel and back arch line up. As we bend our front knee, we want to make sure our knee stays over our ankle. So if we look, we should be able to see the big toe just kind of peeking out from the inside of the knee. If your knee is blocking your view of the toe, see if you can gently nudge that knee to open a little more. Arms at shoulder height, lunge deep, turn the front palm up. Now we can take this to a reverse warrior simply by reaching the upper body back. But the legs don't change at all, right? So we're still lunging. We're just letting that upper body reach back and maybe look up under your arm towards the fingers. And then push into that front leg to straighten the legs and come on up. Let's do the other side. So adjust the feet, right? So that's the first thing we're thinking about is feet. Front heel lines up with back arch. The back toes are turned slightly in. The front toes are turned directly open. And then we're going to try to get our hips to kind of be squared up here. Bend your left knee toward the toes. Make sure you can see that big toe peeking out inside of the front knee and that the knee is not going past your ankle in any way. Root into the outer edge of the back foot. And then one more thing to notice. So sometimes our hips
we'll try to make it easier for us. And thank you, hips, for doing that. But we're actually trying to challenge the hips a little bit here. So if your hips are kind of angling towards the corner of your mat or your right hip is lifting up, see if you can adjust the hips a little bit to level out. It's challenging. Do the best you can. Keeping the left knee over the ankle, keeping the back heel down, shoulders stack over hips, and then the arms are out. Look over your front fingertips. If you start to feel like you're going deeper in your pose, you might even need to squirm the feet further apart so your knee does not go past your ankle. Remember, importance of keeping knee stacked on top of the shin over the ankle. Turn that front palm up, reverse your warrior, stretching back. And then straighten that front leg. Come on up, parallel your feet. Let's do one more pose each side, or two more poses actually on each side. So we're going to transition to the right this time. We're going to go into warrior two. So we were just here, just kind of to remind your body. We're going to take a reverse, and then we're going to take extended side angle, which is kind of a warrior variation. So take your forearm to your thigh, and then the top arm goes overhead at a diagonal. This is called extended side angle for perhaps very obvious reasons. We're extending this whole angle from the outer edge of the back foot along the hip, the shoulder, all the way to the fingertips, and we're trying to create a big diagonal. Maybe turn your head and look up under your arm. Now we're going to come up from this, and we're going to stay on the same leg, but we're going to straighten the leg, and we're going to come to a triangle pose, which is called Trikonasana, so that's its Sanskrit. We're going to keep the legs straight, right? So now, before where it was really important to keep our hips level, we're not going to be able to do that because we're not bending the knee. The hips are going to be the thing that's going to have to shift. We're going to tuck the right hip in, let the left hip move kind of up and back, and then you're going to take your right hand to your right ankle or shin, and the left arm just goes straight up. See if you can look up towards your thumb. This is triangle, Trikonasana. Push the feet into the floor. So try to push down into the ground, engage the legs, and if you can do that, it might feel like it's easier to extend your torso and your arms. Let's float up. And we'll do these on the other side. So pivot the feet the other way. Front heel and back arch line up. Take your arms at shoulder height to start, and we're just going to bend that front knee. So we're coming to warrior two. We're going to reverse warrior, stretch it back. So we're kind of connecting these poses. Let's take the left forearm to the thigh, top arm overhead. So notice the legs don't change when we go from warrior two, reverse warrior, and extended side angle. It really is just a difference in the upper body. Try to make your body into a diagonal line. This arm, if you could just rest it on your head. It should be that close to your ear, but we're going to engage the arm so that we're extending the fingers away. And then come on up. Let's straighten the front leg. And then we're going to tuck the left hip. Sides of the body stay long. Coming into triangle pose, the left hand can just come to that leg. The top arm goes up. So I know we are going through these poses a little quickly, but they will come back again and again. So I just wanted to give you a little introduction to these basic standing poses, which are going to be an important part of your yoga practice to come. Go ahead and float on up. We're going to finish up here with a little twist and a little forward fold. So let's take the right leg straight out, step the left foot over, and we're going to use this to help us to twist. We're going to twist to the left. We're going to use our right arm, either wrapping around our left knee or take it past the left knee. We're going to turn over the left shoulder. Twisting the torso. And then coming back through center, let's just do the other side. So take your left leg out, step the right foot over, wrap the elbow or the arm around the knee, or you could take the elbow past the knee and turn over your right shoulder. And then we're going to come back to center and take both legs out. flex the feet. So we're gonna take a forward fold here, and we've done this one before. So we're starting with Dandasana, staff pose, which is a really, structured upright pose. Our muscles are engaged, particularly in our legs. So those quad muscles are engaged, which we were using when we were doing some of our standing poses. But we've also got the feet flexed, so our calves feel a little engaged. The legs are very engaged. We're going to take the arms out and up on an inhale. And then as we exhale, we're going to keep the strength in the legs, but we're going to start to fold. The hands may easily come to the feet. If you're a little flexible, you'll find that. But if you're not so flexible, your hands might just need to come to the floor next to the legs, and that's fine. So don't force yourself to go deeper than you're ready. Maybe let that head hang a little bit and breathe. Forward folds are often done at the end of a practice. They tend to be a little bit more inward focused, a little bit more calming. Plus, usually we're warm enough by the end of a practice that we can do a nice job of stretching our hamstrings at this point safely. Take a couple more breaths here. Keeping the legs engaged on top, it gives us something to work against. So if you imagine trying to stretch a rubber band, if you're only holding it with one hand, you can't stretch it. It's just going to flop around. But if you put a finger on either side, you can stretch it. So engaging the tops of our legs is sort of like that. We're giving something to pull against as we fold down. And then carefully come on up. And we're going to cross the legs. Okay. So I hope that this practice felt to you a little bit more like practicing yoga full on. We got in a sun salutation, we worked on some standing poses. We're going to continue to grow this practice. This will continue to be posted on Thursdays. The next episode is going to be F is for flow, and we're going to start to string more of these poses together, connecting them so we really feel like we're practicing. Finally, I want to suggest if you have an extra couple minutes, come to your mat at the end of this practice, take a few minutes of Shavasana, completely relax. Shavasana is your corpse pose, and it really is what completes your practice. But I will close with you by bringing palms together in front of the heart, and we'll just take a simple bow forward. So the light in me recognizes and honors the light in you wherever you are. Namaste.